Forage Farming 101. Only in my master studies, so very recently, in the past month, I've started to learn about farming forage. And this video is gonna be an overview of what it takes, or how does one farm forage and how does one plan a seed mixture for a forage, either pasture or like a meadow or field or whatever it's called, because you don't have to farm forage on arable soil. You can, for example, corn is like corn for silage is forage, but it doesn't have to. You doesn't have to grow forage on farmable land on which you could grow pumpkins or cabbage or some other human edible crops otherwise. Forage is good for the very reason that it's just green stuff that grows somewhere that people food wouldn't grow, and that we can utilize also other lands and other areas other than the proper fertile arable land for our food. We let animals graze on those non-farmable areas and we get energy from the animals that graze there. So look at it this way: we have lands that we can get energy from directly, which is normal fields, arable land, and then we have areas which we can't get energy from directly, which is, for example, a meadow. But we can let animals graze the meadow and then get energy indirectly from those animals. So it's a very good system in my opinion. Anyway, one of the most popular forage crops is alfalfa, and it's very interesting. I learned 2 weeks ago, or about 2 weeks ago, that alfalfa is it greatly depends on your surroundings, or your location, on how often you can harvest alfalfa, and logically on how much do you harvest per acre or hectare of alfalfa. Because in some areas, like geographical areas, 3 to 4 cuts per year are the intensive maximum of alfalfa production. However, in some other areas where it's warm, like some subtropical areas, or I've just read. Well, essentially, if alfalfa has the right conditions, it regrows in 30 days from the cut to another cut. When you cut it and it has the right conditions, you can cut it again in 1 month. And in some countries where it's warm all year round, being subtropical areas like, or maybe Texas, I'm not sure, I'm not positive on that, so don't quote me, but maybe something like that, you should be able to harvest alfalfa up to 12 times per year, which is that's a stark difference for areas like where I live, which is the Czech Republic, which is way more up to the north. Like we are northern in any way, shape, or form, but when compared with warmer areas like Texas, we are. So in our latitude, if latitude is the right word, we are able to harvest alfalfa maximally 6 times per year. Like 5 times, sometimes 4. 6 times is the max. However, in some countries or areas, it's only 3 times per year, and in some it's 12 times per year, which is bonkers. So that's cool when you think about it. It's the same plant, but very different yields depending on the area. So that's something to think about. And not only are there different crops for different geographical areas, but also for different use cases. And we got this very, very good looking, well, I mean, it's not like nothing very good looking, but it's a well thought out table, but it's in Czech, so let me translate. The first column is the use case for what you want to use the crop. You got names of, these are grasses, and here are clovers. So there is 2 tables, one for grasses, one for clovers, so that you can properly make the seed mixture or properly plant the seed mixture. The first column is the use case for what you want to use the crop. When you see a 1 in there, it's the best for that. When you see a 2, it's good for that. When you see a 3, it's like it will work. And when you see a 4, you should you should choose a different crop for that use case, or for that whatever the column is. So use case, and the very first column is when you want to cut it for harvesting, and the second column is for grazing. So you see, for example, Alopecuros pratensis is very good for cutting, but it's very bad for grazing. Then you go over to how often you wanna graze it or cut it, the frequency. It's sort of okay for low frequency, like for extensive farming, but it's very good for intensive farming. Then for how early you wanna seed it, so it's very good for seeding early in the year, but it's very bad for seeding it late in the year. Then how long it lasts, or how long you wanna have it growing there. Here are three categories. One is short term, mid-term, and long term, I would say. So it's very bad for short term. It will work in a mid-term, like in a few, like 2 to 3 years, I would say. It will work, but not ideally. And for long term, it's the best. Fertilizing, it's very bad with no fertilizing. It works relatively well with mid-fertilizing, like you don't over-fertilize, but you just give it something. And it works the best with high fertilizing, which of course makes sense. However, when you go over, for example, to the clovers, there is the other way around. All of them work the best with like mid-fertilizing or low fertilizing, because they fixate nitrogen in the soil. So it doesn't make sense to fertilize them more than what they can do themselves. But the thing is, you don't really want to fertilize forage. When it's not like corn for silage, but that's something else. But when you got grasses like this, it doesn't make sense to fertilize them, because the money doesn't make sense. The money don't make sense. You can sell a grass for a lot, but fertilizer costs the same no matter the crop. It's not economic to fertilize your forage. So of course the grasses will grow way better when you fertilize them, but you also have to think about your wallet, your purse, and you just can't go driving around and putting 200 kg of nitrogen onto your forage fields if it's not corn for silage. Yeah, that was basically everything I wanted to tell you. There are tables how to design your seed mixtures. There is multiple ways to go about it, like if you want it for short term, or like only 1 year, or 2 to 3 years, or 7 years, for example. And if you, depending on the climate you want it for, and depending on the use case you want it for, and depending on how much you can spend on fertilizing it, and if you wanna have it for harvesting or for grazing. So I hope you got something from this video, and thanks for watching.